figuring out how to have control of their life, how to look inside of themselves, decide what their values are, decide how to become more of the person that you would like to be. In my opinion, that's the correct definition of power. Men have learned to define power slightly differently, feeling obligated to earn money that somebody else spends while we die sooner. And it's not I'm being a little tongue-in-cheek there, but it's also, there's a fair amount of truth to that as we sort of look at the different decisions that men and women have learned to make. So when we've looked at men, so if we go out here to take a cab back to our offices afterwards today, the chances are very good that the cab driver will be what? A male. And ask that cab driver how many hours per week he works. On average, it will be between 65 and 70. Ask that cab driver the next question. Would you choose to work this number of hours per week? You'll just about be thrown out of the cab. Then ask the cab driver the question, why do you work this number of hours per week? And the cab driver will usually tell you some version of the following. I'm working this number of hours per week so my children don't have to work this number of hours per week, so my children can go to college, so my children can have advantages that I don't have, so my wife can take care of the children, so that my wife can have food on the table and the mortgage payment made. The mistake I think that we made in the last 30 years was assuming that people who had money had power, that people had money as a result of privilege. And what I began to understand as I did the research for Why Men Earn More was that people had money because they sort of oftentimes made sacrifices to get the power of pay. So I began to start seeing what I call the pay paradox. And the pay paradox was basically that men earn money, therefore men have more power, and men earn money, therefore men have less power. And women earn less money, therefore women have less power. Women earn less money, therefore women have more power. Because in the process of earning less money, oftentimes the money that was earned was less because there was a greater amount of fulfillment in the occupational choice. The greater the amount of fulfillment, the greater the supply, and the greater amount of fulfillment, often the less the demand. So teachers don't get paid as much as we often say they should, because more people would prefer to be a teacher or a librarian than more people enjoy reading books than smelling garbage. So we have to pay our garbage collector more, even if the garbage collector isn't as well educated, then we have to pay the librarian or the teacher, because the librarian or the teacher, the great majority of people prefer being a librarian or a teacher, therefore that increases the supply in relation to the demand. Basically, I began to see that it's simpler solution for us to blame men about the pay gap than it is to engineer our own bridge to higher pay. And yet, when people do engineer their own bridge to higher pay, women today out-earn men when all those things are controlled for. And you will see statistic after statistic that will appear to disprove this. You will see that male doctors earn more than female doctors, and you'll say, that Warren Farrell guy, he was wrong. And yet, as you look more carefully, you'll see that the male doctors are more likely to be cardiac surgeons, and the female doctors are more likely to be psychiatrists. And then as you look more closely, you say, I got you again, Warren. The cardiac surgeons who are male out-earn the cardiac surgeons that are female. Is that true? Yes, it's true. But when you look more closely, the cardiac surgeons that are male are more likely to work more hours per week as cardiac surgeons than the cardiac surgeons are female. And then you say, I'll control for the hours. You control for the hours. And you say, the males still out-earn those cardiac surgeons, still out-earn the females, maybe only by 1% or so, but it proves you're wrong, Warren. Then you control for private practice. The male cardiac surgeons are more likely to be in private practice. The female primary cardiac surgeons are more likely to work for a government agency or some type of public practice or an HMO or something along those lines. And as you control for all of those variables, that's when the women out-earn the men. And for me, the importance of this research, and what intrigued me about it is I have two daughters, one 17 and one 18. They're entering the workplace. I want them to understand, take responsibility for their choices. I want them to be able to know where and how to make the choices that are productive for them and their lives, and be able to not walk around feeling angry at the world that men have basically figured out a system to get themselves to be paid more at the expense of women. If that exists at even the 0.5% level, we have to change that. And if that exists, it means we have a contempt for women that needs to be changed. But fortunately, it doesn't exist. And as I started doing the research on this, I became very pleased that the world was a little bit fairer than I thought it was when I started out in this work. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Warren. We have time for questions. I'll let you call on people. Please wait for a microphone to come around so everybody can hear your question, including on the web broadcast. I do questions and answers also a little bit differently than most people do. I believe that there's more resources in this room than me, and so I'm open to I'll ask you as you stand up and ask a question to let you know that I'm okay with a comment as well as a question. I'd like you to say your name so I can speak with you as a person rather than as an object to a lecturer or lecturer to object. And so, and then I will ask usually one or two other people to comment on that perspective, and then I will add my own perspective as well, so that we turn this into sort of a recognition that we all have perspectives and views that are worth hearing here. So is there anybody that would like to start out? Yes, say your name.
My name is
Can you stand up, June?
My name is June Myers.
Hi, June.
Thank you. Hi, my name is June Myers, and I'm not sure what the plural of this is, even though I'm female, but what do you think would happen if men could bear children, if men had uteruses or uteri? What would then, how would this impact your data? I mean, because we can choose to adopt now, but I think these choices were probably archetypally made a long time ago. And, you know, the hunter-gatherer, the homemaker. So if men could really have children, how would that impact your view of this?
Good. June's question is, if men could have children, how would that impact these findings? Anybody have any thoughts on that? Any feelings about it?
Aside from adoption.
Yes, aside from adoption. Yes. Say your name.
My name is Brad, and I really enjoyed your Myth of Male Power book.
Thank you, Brad.
Say that. I was just thinking about your interview you did with Ken Wilber.
I'm sorry, June. Brad, would you, I'm asking for comments on June's point, and then I'll come to a new point, okay? So you're right up after June. But right now, comments on June's point. If men could have children, how would things be different? Physically, June, you want them to answer? Oh, okay. Oh, I see. Physically have children. Say your name.
Hi, my name is Patrick. And if men had children, and the children would survive, men would have to have a completely different set of feelings.
Completely what?
Different set of feelings. Feelings similar to the ones that women have, which are evolution's way, in my opinion, to make sure that children survive, or a certain portion survive. So that the result, I think, would be that basically men would be pursuing strategies similar to those of women. And I believe that evolutionarily, two different paths have made sense to the two different sexes. And there's feelings and emotions that having children necessarily requires if those children are going to survive.
Very good insight and very important insight. Anybody else want to take it on before I give a perspective on it? Kathleen, is it? Is it Catherine? Sorry. Say your name, Catherine.
Catherine
and
Lewis.
Can you stand up?
Oh, sure. Well, I think that June's question raises an interesting point, which is sort of what I'm debating about the structure that you've built in your book, which is a lot of these choices aren't necessarily choices that people can make, that women or men can make. That, you know, to work longer hours or to have higher education or to be in a more scientific field is not necessarily a choice that any given woman could make. And I think that, I've seen so many studies that women are working bad shifts and working in low-skilled industries, not making a lot of money. It seems to me that, yes, in an ideal world, it would be great if the man or the woman could choose to be the breadwinner, but I just wonder how much of that is the reality.
Yes, good. Okay, very excellent points. One more comment, then I'll add my comment to it. Say your name.
Yeah, Paul Shore. I hope I don't seem mean-spirited by essentially demolishing the question